Hi, this is Sandy Krot from Insight Principles, and this is part 2 of the video, There Are Principles Behind How the Human Mind Works. You remember on part 1, I talked about why it's so valuable to understand how anything works, how a system works, how a machine works, how anything works. And then I talked about what happens when principles are discovered and what that does to improve and increase and deepen our understanding. Well, this video will be about the 3 principles that govern how our mind works. They're the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. For me, having insights into these principles has allowed for what I would call psychological freedom. By psychological freedom, I mean I don't have to get my circumstances exactly right in order for me to be happy or to feel good about myself. And I don't have to be at the mercy of what happens to me or what other people say. That's what I mean by freedom. I'm also able to use my mind well and to use some of the resources that are built into my mind, which has brought a lot of ease to my life. Again, doesn't mean I don't have my bad days. It doesn't mean challenges don't come my way. They do. But understanding how my mind works and understanding these principles has allowed me to bounce back much more quickly and to have creative solutions to the problems that cross my path. I'm hoping that happens for you too. Okay, let's get started. In some ways, it's a challenge to share these principles with people because they're invisible. And like gravity, you can see what gravity does, but it's hard to explain what gravity actually is, other than to say it's a force. So I'm going to do my best. And as you're listening, you really want to take in what I'm saying with as relaxed and as open a mind as possible. Don't get hung up on my words. I'm never going to get the words exactly right. So try to listen to where I'm pointing. And hopefully you'll begin to get a sense of what I'm saying. And as you watch this video other times or other ones of our videos, you'll get a deeper and deeper sense. I'm going to ask you to look in a direction that you typically don't look in. I mean, we get up in the morning and we start having experiences. We have experiences all day long. And it really doesn't occur to us to wonder how it is that we can have an experience. We're so busy having the experience. So understanding these principles is a bit like being in a drone above the forest, and you're getting to look down on the forest and see what's actually going on there. So you're going to ask you to kind of step back from your moment-to-moment experience and to look and see where it's coming from. Because it can look like it's coming from, it looks like how you experience life or how you feel about life is coming from what's happening. Like right now, you're watching this video and you could say, well, you're on the screen and so that's why I'm experiencing you. But look a little closely and you'll notice that there'll be times, and maybe there have already been times during this video, where your mind started to drift. And you began to think of either thinking about something I just said or thinking about something completely unrelated. And while that was happening, I disappear for you. Now, I don't disappear from the screen, but in terms of your experience, I disappear because you've got something else going on inside your mind, and that's determining your experience in the moment. So I'm going to ask you to take a journey with me behind the scenes of your experience. And in order to help me out here, I'm going to use an analogy. and it's kind of a dated analogy. Uh, I'm going to ask you to picture an older model movie projector. Today's movie projectors are digital, but back in the day, there used to be movie projectors that had film running through them. So if you can picture it in your mind, you have the projector and it is plugged in to a power source of electricity. And within the projector, there is a light source of some kind, and there's film that runs through the projector. As long as all three of those things are happening, as long as the projector is plugged in, as long as the light source is working, as long as there is film running through that projector, there will be a movie on the screen. Now, whatever is on the film will determine what shows up on the screen. So if you have a film about a family playing at the beach, enjoying the water, then that's what will show up on the screen. If you have a film of a battle scene and fighting going on, then that's what will show up on the screen. You'll never have a battle scene on the screen when there is film of a family playing at the beach. Projectors don't work that way. Whatever's on the film gets projected onto the screen. Well, these principles that govern how your mind works all have to work at the same time. So it's hard to separate them out, but I'm gonna try, because they're each bringing you an aspect of your experience. The first principle is the principle of mind. Well, the principle of mind is pointing to the fact that there is an intelligent energy that makes life possible, that's running life. It's beating your heart, it's running your immune system, it's growing the trees, it's allowing animals to operate with instinct. It's responsible for life itself. I say that it's an intelligent energy because, and I think the easiest way to look at this, or to notice it, or to observe it, is to look at nature. In nature, it can look very chaotic. It can look like there's a lot going on. But if you study it in any way, you notice there are patterns. There is what I would call a method to the madness. There is all kinds of processes that are interrelated that make life in nature possible. And you see the seasons change, you can observe a tree growing, you can observe a tree dying, you can observe a log rotting into the soil and going back into the soil. You can observe animals surviving, sometimes in very, very difficult conditions. There's some intelligence that's at play that's observable. Well, that same intelligence is running your mind, and that's very good news for humanity. The second principle is the principle of consciousness. Well, the principle of consciousness is pointing to the fact that you have the capacity for awareness. You're aware, you're awake. You have the ability to have an experience. You come into the world with as an experiencer. You can see life and smell life and taste life because of consciousness, because this capacity for awareness. The third principle is the principle of thought. And the principle of thought is pointing to your capacity to think. Again, you come into the world with a capacity to think. And you're thinking all the time, 24/7, for the rest of your life, from the minute you're born to the day you die. You are creating images are being created in your head, perceptions are being created, which allow you to know life, to see life. So these three principles, mind, consciousness, and thought, are working behind the scenes, bringing you every experience that you have. Let me go back to the picture of the movie projector. Okay, and here's represents the power source, the electric source for the projector. There's a light source. There's film in the camera. And whatever film is on the camera, that's going to show up on the screen. Well, using this analogy, the principle of mind would be the power source, the what's responsible for making the whole system work. The principle of consciousness would be the light source, what's lighting up the screen, lighting up the reality, lighting up your experience. And the principle of thought would be the film that's running through the projector. And on the screen would be your reality. Now, when I say reality, I don't mean that these principles of mind, consciousness, and thought make things happen to you. I don't mean that there isn't a reality out there that you have to deal with. There's illness, there's death, you can lose your job. There are things that happen. I'm not saying that your mind creates those. I'm saying that your mind allows you to have an experience of that. And whatever your mind creates, that will be your experience of whatever's happening. So like the analogy of the movie projector, you have to have mind, consciousness, and thought, all three, in order for you to have an experience. They're there working behind the scenes, bringing you your reality. Now, I know it can look like our mind is like a camera and it's taking a picture of life. But in actual fact, our mind is like a movie production studio. And inside our mind is creating the very experience of reality that we have. Here's a very simple, ordinary, everyday example. Have you ever had a time when you drove into your driveway, say from work or from the store, and you pull into your driveway and you have absolutely no recollection of the drive? You know you got from point A to point B, but you have no recollection of how you got home. And maybe you come into your home and your spouse says something like, hey, did you notice the Baileys painted their house? And you're like, no. Now, you drove right by the Bailey's house and you might have even looked at it, but you didn't see it. You didn't experience it, nor did you experience anything else between where you started your car ride and home, even though there was plenty of scenery to be seen. You didn't see it because in your car, you were thinking something else. You maybe were thinking about what happened at work that day. Maybe you were thinking about a conversation you really need to have with your teenager. Maybe you were just daydreaming. But your thinking was not about the scenery. And so it did not exist for you. Because that's how your mind works. Without thought being brought to life by consciousness, powered by mind, there is no reality for you. There is no experience for you. Now, we all sort of know this. We use the phrase, oh, perception is reality. I know that. But boy, do we make exceptions. There are many, many times in our life, and there are many messages that we receive from the media, from um, um, song lyrics, from movies, from books, everywhere. The message is that something can make you experience it in a certain way, or something can make you feel about it in a certain way. And we certainly have those moments when it looks that way. You'll be you're driving in your car, and someone cuts you off, and you immediately get upset. And it looks like your upset is being caused by the person who cut you off. But look again, because there very likely are times when you get cut off and you don't get upset. You barely notice it. And there are things that look like they universally bring you a sense of good feeling. Like every time when I ride my bike, I just love riding my bike, and I get so happy riding my bike. Well, it looks like bike riding is creating the positive experience for me or for you. But look again, are there ever times when you're on your bike when you're not happy? Probably. So all of these exceptions that are in our life mean that it can't be a principle that the world or what happens to us or other people are making us feel a certain way or making us experience them in a certain way. The actual principles are that your experience of life is being created from the inside via these principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. Now, when you discover principles, as I said on the first video, along with those principles come some implications that then guide our behavior. So when the medical community realized that germs caused infection, at the same time they recognized there were implications of that fact. So one of the implications that they soon realized was that if there was infection on their hands, if there were germs on their hands, that infection could be passed on to their patients. Or if there were germs on their scalpel or other equipment, those germs could be passed on to their patient. So once they got that implication, it made sense to then behave in a certain way, which was to sterilize your hands and to sterilize equipment. Well, when you begin to see the principles that are governing how your mind works, you'll also see some implications. Many of our videos are about these implications. There are several implications of how the mind works. I'm just going to mention very briefly a couple of them here, but again, there are videos about both of these implications, which I encourage you to watch. Because of the way the mind works, because it's governed by these principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, there are two implications that stand out. One is that the mind works only one way, from the inside out. Just like in this diagram, without the film in the projector, you're not going to have a scene on the screen. Without thought, brought to life by consciousness, powered by mind, you're not going to see a reality. But whatever that thought is, it's going to determine your moment-to-moment reality. That's why we say it works from the inside out and only one way. That's one implication. And the other implication that stands out is the fact that there is this intelligence that exists that's making life possible. We don't own it, we don't control it, but we're a part of it. And because it's intelligent and it's running the system, it's, again, very good news for humanity. It means that there's a possibility for us to receive new thinking at any time, for us to have solutions to our problems. And again, we sort of know this. There are plenty of times when we've been stymied by a problem and we get up from our desk and we get a drink of water or a cup of coffee, or we go outside for a walk, and it hits us. The answer hits us. Now, why it didn't hit us when we were sitting at our desk and then it hits us later, well, you'll notice that when you're sitting down at your desk and you're full of thinking about the problem and looking at the problem over and over and over again, in some ways having the same thinking over and over again, you don't get anything new. But when you step back and take a break, you get to receive potentially something new. So because we are connected to this intelligent energy behind life, an implication of how the mind works is that the mind is designed to work well. We call it, has a built-in design for success. Now, let me give you a little example or a story of a client who she said every Sunday night she would begin to get tense. Every Sunday night she would begin to feel stress and tension. And she'd begin to worry about what was going to happen, what was going to show up for her on Monday morning. And she very rarely enjoyed Sunday evenings and typically didn't sleep well. Now, before she learned how her mind worked, she would have said that the reason she got stressed on Sunday night was because of how difficult her job was. Because she never knew what problem was going to be dumped on her desk on Monday morning. That's why she felt such stress and tension on Sunday night. But when she began to realize where her experience actually was coming from, she told me, she said, one night, she said, it's Sunday night and I'm feeling my typical tension and stress. And she said, for some reason, I remembered to look and I noticed what I was thinking. And I was thinking all about what was going to happen on Monday morning. And I realized the more I thought about it, the more stressed I got. And I saw the connection between the thinking I was doing and the stress that I was experiencing. And then she said, and I thought to myself, why am I doing that when I could be enjoying my family? So she saw the connection. She saw that her experience was being created from the inside out. And when she saw that, this built-in design for success of the human mind brought her a brand new thought. And she was able to have, really for the first time in a very long time, a very enjoyable Sunday night. And she said, when I got into work Monday morning, I was refreshed. And yes, there were lots of problems there, and there was a lot for me to do, but I was in great shape. So let me quickly review. These are the principles that govern how the mind works. The principle of mind, it's pointing to the fact that there is an intelligent energy that runs life, that runs nature, that runs our body, and that's running our mind. The principle of consciousness. There's a capacity within your mind for awareness. You can be awake to life. You can know life. You can know your experience. You can know the power behind life. You can know the intelligent energy behind life. You can be aware of that. The principle of thought, it's pointing to the fact that we're thinkers. We can't help it. We're going to be thinking. And that thinking is going to determine what we experience. These principles are working behind the scenes. They're working there whether you know it or not. It's kind of like gravity. It's at work whether we know it or not or believe it or not. These principles are bringing you your experience of life in every moment. When you see it, when you recognize it, when you look in this direction, what happens is you find a confidence and an ease, because you know that you are not going to be a victim of circumstances. You don't have to experience life in a particular way. You will always have the ability to have a new thought, which will bring you a wholly new experience in any moment. Well, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you will watch other videos that we have available. Thanks for listening.